Hello everyone, welcome to another Odd Commander Deck Tech. There's a lot of excitement around Avatar and Spider-Man spoilers right now, so let's talk about Thunder Junction. You see, there was a lull in my EDH deck building for a couple of sets, simply because I just couldn't get invested in any of these commanders or mechanics or strategies. They all seemed so ephemeral and unimportant, but looking back, Thunder Junction has really caught my eye, and I realized that there are commanders that I've been sleeping on in this set. I found one that's pretty underrated, but to me, pilots a strategy better than any other in the archetype, and is going to continue to get better and better over time, and I'm really excited to see how this develops. I'm talking about Ertha Jo Frontier Mentor. Ertha Jo is a 4 mana value core advisor. It's a 2/4, and when it enters the battlefield, you make a mercenary token, which can tap to give something +1/+0 until end of turn. But the more interesting ability is whenever you activate an ability that targets a creature or player, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. Now, I don't even remember seeing this card when I first looked at spoilers for the set, but if I had, I probably had just discounted it as another mercenary card that slots into the Mardu Outlaw archetype from the set. But on closer inspection, that last ability is super interesting, and the more I got thinking about it, the more I knew I was back to building Boros again. Maybe one day I'll talk about my experience with Winota. Anyways, we're going to build this commander. Our goal is to double up pumping abilities of mercenaries to primarily use pingers to burn our opponents down. Let's go through how I built the deck, and when I'm through, you can let me know what you think of this strategy. Ertha Jo cares most about activated abilities that target a creature or player, so let's think of some ways that we can make our activated abilities better as kind of a base for the deck. Agros Kos Eternal Soldier lets us copy an activated ability that targets it for each creature we control that it could target. So suddenly, if we have the 4 mana for Agros Kos's ability, a mercenary will pump all of our creatures for +2/+0. That's pretty good rate, and the more mana and mercs we have, the better. There are some even better abilities that we could get into that are more explosive, so we'll just keep Agros Kos in the back of our mind. Drum Bellower will untap all of our creatures on everyone's untap step. Naturally, a lot of our activated abilities require tapping, and so this is going to give us quadruple the activations since they're already getting doubled. Gilrain Dunedain Protector is a repeatable blink engine and one of the best. Yes, we have to tap it, but even so, it's going to let us double up on one of our activated abilities in a turn as long as we can find a way to give whatever we're activating haste. It's even just useful blinking Ertha Jo to get another mercenary token, so it's definitely good to include in the deck. Jaxus the Troublemaker and Ortheon Hero of Lavabrink are ways to make token copies of other creatures. Since they target, we get 2 for the price of 1. It's really good. Ortheon's second ability could win us the game with the right setup. Magerite Stone is a cheap way to reactivate 2 different creatures since Ertha Jo is going to double that activated ability. Rowan Kenrith is a sweet planeswalker with 3 very relevant abilities to this deck, but the ultimate is what's going to make it really good in the deck, essentially giving us 2 extra Ertha Jos that can't be removed. It's going to be hard to pull off, especially because we're not doing any other planeswalker support in the deck, but fortunately the rest of the abilities are good enough to warrant this being in the deck. 1000-Year Elixir obviously gives our abilities haste and lets us untap a couple of creatures really good. And then Zerta the Dawnwaker makes our activated abilities cheaper. There are a couple of key applications of Zerta's ability in this deck that makes it for some really wild interactions. And I think that Zerta is probably the other good commander in this archetype just because it synergizes well with activated abilities. But I think that Ertha Jo just does it better, and we'll see kind of the unique interactions that Ertha Jo does in this deck tech. Now, let's talk about the bread and butter for the deck. The bread, in this case, is our pingers. We classify anything that's going to deal direct damage to our opponents or creatures they control as pingers to keep it a little bit more broad. But all the same, they're going to be amplified by Ertha Jo and the butter of the deck, which is coming up next for some very explosive turns. Brash Taunter does damage when it's dealt damage, which is pretty interesting with Ertha Jo. The easiest way to make good use of Brash Taunter is to activate its ability to fight another target creature, which gets copied, so you're probably fighting the strongest creature on the battlefield twice to deal that much damage directly to someone's face. Very cool and going to be very annoying for your opponents. Brigid, Hero of Kinsbale, is more of a protection, but it's great protection because it's able to stop any onslaught that has fewer than 5 toughness from getting through your board. Pair this with Drum Bellower, and you've got quite a wall that goes up against go-wide decks. Brian's Stout Arm will throw something at an opponent and gain life equal to the damage done to it because it has lifelink. Here we're going to do that damage twice, so getting a large creature and then throwing something is a sure way to protect your life and ruin others. Cunning Spark Mage and Volshock Sorcerer are functionally identical here, and being able to do 1 damage to any target. This becomes 2 damage and even more if we untap them. But the best pingers in the deck are Spikeshot Elder and Spikeshot Goblin, because these ones are most heavily affected by pump effects. The Elder is obviously the win con. If we can get its power very large due to all the mercenaries and other effects in the deck, we're going to be doing twice that to something for only 3 mana. The Goblin does the same, but only once. The Elder can keep going if we have more mana. This exact interaction is what got me to build the deck. Spikeshot Elder is just too strong of a burn candidate to ignore. If pingers are the bread, then pump abilities are the butter. We're putting anything in here that is going to increase the effectiveness of our pingers. Combine these with Ertha Jo, and we've got a killer combination. Agatha's Soul Cauldron puts +1/+1 counters on things for cheap, with the added benefit of graveyard removal and stealing abilities of whatever is exiled. This could be really helpful for getting strong abilities that end up in your graveyard. This card is very, very good and also pretty expensive, so I would slot in any other +1/+1 counter kind of synergy if you can't afford this card. Angelic Soulsword makes us a whole bunch of mercs, and then draws us a card whenever it attacks while pumped. Ariok Blade Warden is incredibly strong in the deck. Here, you can have this be the target of your pumping abilities. Those get doubled, and then when it activates its ability, it's going to double up the pumping that it does to whatever creature as well. Then, whatever it's targeting, most likely a pinger, is going to double up that damage it's doing. 1 merc turns into 8 damage, and this only amplifies with more pumping, more mercs, everything. It's an exponential growth. It's incredibly potent, and this is absolutely a strong enabler in the deck that you must have. Basilica Skull Bomb is a cool one-off effect that will give us +4 power and 2 cards for only 3 mana in white, so that's pretty cool. Captive Flame and Gitu Warcry are fire-breathing effects on enchantments. 1 mana gives us 2 extra power, and it's repeatable, meaning that something could get very big very fast. Cathar's Crusade is obviously strong here. Even though Ertha Jo doesn't proc off of it, we're still increasing the strength of our entire board whenever something enters, which is going to boost our Spike Shots and Stout Arm immensely. City on Fire doesn't increase our power, but it does triple the damage done. I chose this over Fiery Emancipation because of the Convoke and the fact that we're already going to have ways of untapping our creatures, so that's pretty synergistic for the deck. Lion Sash is a sweet exile engine that lets us exile and pump it up twice for every activation of white mana. Then we can attach this to something else and pump that quite a lot. Puffer Extract is a crazy efficient way to pump something up by a lot. The only downside is that if we don't have a way to give it indestructible, that creature is going to get destroyed. I love comboing this with Brash Taunter, and I can see it being very useful in a pinch. Slayer's Stronghold and Sunhome Fortress of the Legion are 2 lands that work great at increasing our creature's power. Sunhome just gives Double Strike, which doesn't have a lot of synergy in our deck, but it can help in a pinch as a neat combat trick. And then we have Sonic Screwdriver, which isn't technically a pump piece here, but it can make sure our commander and another big creature can swing, or it can just serve to provide extra ramp with its untapping ability. Alright, we've talked about the bread and butter of the deck, but there are still a lot of really cool synergies that we have to talk about with Ertha Jo, so we're going to keep on talking about the utility pieces for now. Bounty Board is a mana rock, but it also lets us put 2 bounty counters per activation on our opponent's creatures. With pingers, we can take care of those small threats, get a whole bunch of card draw. Hummel Defector and Yes Man Personal Securitron are pure value in Ertha Jo, giving you the ability to draw 4 cards on each activation. You're probably not going to get these creatures back, but just getting 4 cards for 2 or 3 mana is a really good rate for a Boros deck. Plus, Yes Man will give you a bonus when it leaves the battlefield, which you could personally ensure that it does. Lauren of the Third Path is a great removal piece when it enters, but it also has the ability to tap and make you and an opponent draw 2, and that's the real reason why it's in here. And then Mishra's Bauble is a free way to get 2 cards. Remember when I said 2 mana for 4 cards was good? 0 mana for 2 cards is even better. Let's quickly talk about ramp. We don't have a lot of interesting cards here, mostly mana rocks, but we do have a few noteworthy cards. I won't mention everything here, but you can check out the list for all of the cards. Soulbright Flamekin is an absolute must-have for the deck. Normally, sinking 6 mana into its ability will give you 8 mana in return, a net of 2 red mana. But with Ertha Jo, you only need to sink 4 mana into it to get back 8, a net of 4 red mana. So this is essentially doubling your red mana production, which synergizes so well with Spikeshot Elder. In addition, having copies or blinking the Flamekin is going to get you even more mana. I don't think I have a way to go infinite with this in the deck, at least not easily, but you're not going to need to if you have the other pieces that make your burning incredibly lethal. Chandra, Bold Pyromancer, and Chandra Just to Kill generate mana in the same ability as burning a creature or player, which is perfect and copyable. I wish there were more effects like this that take advantage of Ertha Jo to ramp, but unfortunately, that's basically the end of the list for ramp. Our last section is about protection and removal. Again, I'm only going to go over the synergistic pieces here, so let's go over the activated abilities that protect us and remove threats. Gerard, Weatherlight Hero, doesn't synergize with Ertha Jo, but is excellent at stopping a board wipe, so we're putting it in here. Mazavith stops 2 attackers. This is going to stop a lot of Voltron Commander's decks in their tracks, since it's not really easy to deal with a land like this. Mother of Runes protects 2 creatures with 1 activation, meaning it could protect itself and another creature. Skrelv Defector Might gives something essentially protection from a color. It's not 100% that, it's hexproof and unblockable, but it's close. It also gives Toxic 1, but there's no other synergy for Toxic in the deck, so you can largely ignore the poison counters if you don't like them. Onto the removal package, Argent Dais is ridiculously easy to proc without even attacking yourself, and the activated ability gets rid of 2 non-land permanents, which is huge. Yes, the 4 cards you're giving to your opponents is a steep price to pay, but hopefully you're outvaluing them and tempoing them by removing certain targets. Captivating Crew doesn't really go in any other category, but its ability to steal 2 creatures for the price of 1 is incredible in this deck, and kind of removal, so I guess I'll put it here. In any case, it's very useful to have around. Gorilla Shaman is a cool way to destroy multiple artifacts, and usually it doesn't cost very much to activate. Hilda's Crown of Winter taps down 2 creatures really easily. You could then go ahead and sacrifice it for the card draw, but I think it's great to keep around for a couple of turn cycles because it really helps control the early game. Intrepid Hero destroys something with power 4 or greater. Remember Brigid, the one that stops anything with power 4 or less from getting through? This is the other side of the coin, and it's pretty brilliant. Laser Screwdriver is another mana rock with a couple items of utility. The last one is the one of interest here, with the ability to goad 2 creatures for 3 mana. There's not a lot of other goad effects in the deck, so this fills a little bit of a niche against those attacking decks. And last we have Stone of Eric. It's great graveyard removal and excellent card draw. It's a strong inclusion for the deck. Ertha Jo took me by surprise, and I think a lot of Boros commanders end up doing that. For a long time, Boros was considered one of the weakest commander options, but the caliber of commander that has come out of it over the last couple of years is shifting that stigma away. I have absolutely loved playing this deck. What do you think about this commander? Would you have built it differently? I'm really excited by the prospect of a Super Friends deck with this commander as well, something I might have to explore in the future, so let me know in the comments. Until next time, thank you for watching.